Hello and welcome to your Urban Connection. Now, I've got a story here that I have a couple of issues with, but I find it to be a very interesting story. And I'm sure that most of you will agree with me when I call into question uh, the timing of the origin of this show. Now, this show is going to be entitled Black Church Calls for the Suspension of calls for the Black Church Coalition calls on MSNBC to suspend Al Sharpton over donations from the Harris campaign. Now, as I told you last week, that MSNBC was dealing with another scandal, and that scandal involved Reverend Al Sharpton receiving two $250,000 campaign, donations to his National Action Network from the campaign of Kamala Harris. Now, here's what I want you to know, and I've got this picture up here. This is Al Sharpton doing an interview with Kamala Harris, and this was after she had donated $500,000 to his campaign. And I would be the first one to tell you, as I did last week, that I thought that presented a very bad look on the part of Al Sharpton, and then his refusal to reveal those donations to MSNBC management put them in a bad light also. It basically dealt with the integrity of both Al Sharpton as a host for MSNBC, and for the network itself. It was a bad look. It looked like it was a pay-to-play scheme by Reverend Al Sharpton. And as I said at the time, Sharpton certainly knows better. Well, now the chickens are coming home to roost because this Black church, it's a coalition, I guess. It says a coalition of Black churches is calling on MSNBC to suspend and investigate Reverend Al Sharpton after his nonprofit accepted $500,000 in donations from Vice President Kamala Harris' campaign. This type of action puts a moral stain on the integrity of the Black church. The National Black Church Initiative wrote Tuesday urging MSNBC to investigate the Harris campaign's payment. The coalition says it represents 150,000 churches and 27.7 million members across the country, and is very concerned that one of our leaders appears to be selling our voting to Kamala Harris campaign. Now, this is all very interesting, and I agree with them. But there's a caveat. I want to read you just a little bit more, and then I'll tell you what the caveat is. This group says that they were organized in 1991. 1991. Now, you remember who was president at that time and was running for re-election? If you said George Bush, you'd be right. So my question is, this is 2024. In 1991, or maybe it was 92, but I think it was 91, when Black churches and Black ministers all across this country accepted campaign donations and campaign favors from George W. Bush to get behind him and endorsed the anti-gay marriage bill. You remember that? Where was the Black Church Coalition at that time? They didn't have anything to say about that. None of that. They didn't have a word to say about that. Black churches all across the country. So they can't say they were ignorant to the fact that they didn't know about it. It was happening all over. Now, here's my point. I'm not defending for one moment the actions of Al Sharpton in this situation. I detest what he did as much as they do. But the difference between me and them is this. I am consistent with my opposition to any sellouts to the Black community for political gain. And I don't care if it's ministers, I don't care if it's the civil rights organizations, I don't care if it's individuals, I don't care if it's entertainers, I don't care if it's athletes, I don't care who it is. I am consistent with my detestation, okay? And I don't mind speaking out against individuals, churches, preachers, athletes, entertainers, anybody that falls into that category. Okay? They're sellouts. And they need to be called that. In Al Sharpton's case, he didn't handle this very well at all. It certainly looks like, feels like, acts like, and walks like a duck as far as pay to play is concerned. So they're right in calling him out. Okay? Now, I don't know if they are right to go so far as to ask MSNBC to suspend him or to fire him, but they're right in pointing out that what he did was a very bad look for him, for MSNBC, and for the Black church, and for the Black community. Absolutely. However, like I said, let's be consistent, because only about a year ago, when Bishop or Reverend, whatever you want to call him, T.D. Jakes, received several $1 million from one of the country's largest discriminatory banks in the country for the last 25 years. And he received money to be the spokesman for them to the Black community. And I didn't hear this group offering any opposition to that. They didn't call him on the target, you know what I mean? They didn't call him on the carpet for being a sellout. I did. Okay? So let's be consistent, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to call out one, call out the other. If you're going to call out one group, call out the other group. They're all just as bad as the other one. You know, look, you guys, certainly as a Black minister and preacher, whatever, you know this. The Bible says, let he who is without sin cast the first stone, okay? And what I'm telling you is there are, and you all know this, you might not admit it, but you know this, there are lots of Black church members, well, I'm going to say members, Black ministers across this country that are sellouts. And you know it. You don't call them out. You got one in Cleveland, okay? He and his wife, bootlickers for Donald Trump. You don't call them out. You've got, I believe his name is Alex Robinson, okay, who just ran for governor of North Carolina, who even calls himself a Black Nazi. I didn't see you or hear you all calling him out. You have Pastor Mark Burns in the 2014 election, licking the boots of Donald J. Trump. I didn't hear you all calling him out. Okay? So all I'm saying is be consistent. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with what you're saying, but I'm disagreeing with the fact that your inability to not only call out Reverend Al Sharpton, but call out some of the other ministers amongst your church caucus. Okay? You have 150,000, I believe, churches, you said. You've been in business since 1991. So certainly this is not the first time you've seen a member of your ministry or your church coalition step out of line and sell out his community for a few bucks. In this particular case, Al Sharpton was 500,000, half a million. Okay. In other cases, like I said, Reverend Jakes, several million. Okay. In other cases, maybe not so much. But it doesn't make any difference if it's $10. If you're selling out to your community, my friend, and all at the same time you're in the pulpit preaching and so-called teaching about the moral stain on the Black community, be consistent. Be consistent. That's all I ask. Okay. Now, I want to show you others that received money from the Harris campaign, and it's a known fact. It's nobody can argue with it. Nobody they will not disagree with it. Another person that received money was a podcaster, a fellow podcaster, and he's very well known. And he received $350,000. And there he is, and his name is Roland Martin. Okay. Now, most of you know Roland. Like I said, he's very popular. Okay. He received $350,000. Now, Roland, according to him, the money he received was for advertising. That is believable. That is believable. He's got a big national audience, and I can believe that. Now, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily true, but knowing Roland and how Roland is constantly asking for money on his program, I can believe that. And he asked for advertising dollars, and he wants his share, so I can believe that. But let's move on. Roland was not the only one. There was another TV entertainer that we all know, and we know well. Okay? The queen of TV, okay? Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey received two donations of $500,000 each. It's $1 million. When she was questioned about the money she received, it was not donations. According to her, it was for production expenses. Now, let me just say this. I know in national TV, the production expenses can be relatively expensive. But I'm going to tell you, I find it hard to believe that I'm not sure if the show was 1 hour or 30 minutes with Oprah Winfrey and Kamala Harris. But even if it was 1 hour, I find it difficult to believe that the production cost was $500,000. Now, if she would have said split between production costs and advertising, okay, I could believe that. It costs money to advertise nationally. And I don't care if it's political or it's commercial or whatever it is. It does cost a lot of money. But I don't believe, and I can be wrong, I just don't, I have a hard time, I'll put it that way, I have a hard time believing that it costs $1 million to do a 1 hour or even 2 hour produce a TV show. Okay, it costs that much money. Maybe I mean political. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Now I can see somebody spending that kind of money for a commercial that is going to be run several times. It's going to be run consistently. But this was a one-time thing. a one-time show. All right. So that seems like an awful lot of money to me. Now, here's what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have any problem with anybody that accepts money from other politician, uh, commercial business, commercial business, or whatever. But I think you do have an obligation to be transparent with your audience. And I don't know about Oprah, and I don't know about Roland, but I do know that Reverend Al was not transparent with his audience, with his management at MSNBC, or not. And that is what makes it look bad. That's what calls into question his integrity, or as this church group calls it, the moral stain on one of their members and the Black church, because he was not. It made it look like he was hiding something, because the only way that these payments were revealed was these political campaigns have to make financial campaign filings to the FEC. And when the Harris Walz campaign made their filing to the FEC, these payments were revealed. Now, like I said, Oprah might have made hers available. I don't know. Roland might have made his available, because just to be honest with you, I know there were reports out there prior to this mess up, this scandal with Reverend Al, that Roland Martin had received $350,000. That was available. That information was available. I don't know if he made it available or somehow or another it was leaked somewhere, but that information was available. But as far as Oprah, I hadn't heard that. Reverend Al, of course, nobody knew about that. But when they filed that campaign finance report, that's when things came to fruition, and it brought about this whole scandal that has now led up to a national Black church caucus, okay, getting involved. Now, I want to go a little bit further with this, and I want to say one other thing. It says here that Reverend Sharpton is loved and admired by many in our coalition, but that does not take away from the fact that he is facing significant moral and journalism ethics regarding this payment or donation to the National Action Network. This is Reverend Anthony Evans, president of the National Black Church Initiative. He said in the group statement, "We will continue to pray for him." Now, even at this, and even after this, a spokesman for MSNBC and Reverend Al Sharpton did not immediately respond to a request for comment. That further illustrates that maybe something is wrong with this picture. Okay? So I would suggest that Reverend Sharpton, I don't know whether or not he's under investigation or whether they intend to investigate him, but I think he would do himself good to come forward on his own and make an apology, or at least give an explanation about how these two donations of $250,000 each came about, and what the money was intended for. Was it to pay to play, which he will never admit, or was it a justifiable campaign donation to his nonprofit National Action Network? But to remain silent and ignore this and thinking it's going to go away is not doing anything, sir, to enhance your integrity, nor your reputation, nor the reputation for MSNBC. Okay? But again, I just want to say this. This group also talks about Reverend Sharpton. This is not the first time that he's been involved in this type of scandal. They mentioned the fact that he was paid off by a cigarette company, okay, when there was an initiative to ban smoking, and I believe it was nicotine, and Al Sharpton basically sold out. And here again, let me just say one thing to you. Al Sharpton was not the only one in the Black community. There was a national civil rights organization that also sold out on that very same initiative. There was a Black national civil rights organization that also sold out to an electrical company, I believe it was in Alabama, about an initiative that an electric company wanted to put and utilize in the Black community. And the entire community was against it. But this National Black Civil Rights Organization sold out the Black community for mutual, okay, from the electric utility company. So all I'm saying, folks, is I'm not opposed to you calling them out. I'd love for you to call them out. I will call them out when I see it. So just be consistent. That's all I ask. After all, you represent the Black community. Be transparent with the same. Okay? All right, folks. That's my show. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.